Hello, folks. Welcome to This Week in History with Mike and Will. I am Mike.
And I'm Will.
And it's This Week in History, where Will looks up an event that happened in history on this week, and he has 1 hour to explain that event to me.
1 hour.
Yes. Now, this event is not an event per se. It's a person. The birth of Pyrrhus. The birth of Pyrrhus. And then, I guess, the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Which might be it'll be a trend for This Week in History.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Maybe this year will be all people.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping to do like a character study series.
Okay, well, maybe that's this.
I mean, we're on the roll this week and then next week. So I'll try
You
to
still
keep it
only
going.
got 1 hour, though.
I get an hour. I got to go fast for this guy.
All right, so are you ready for the birth of Pyrrhus?
Birth of Pyrrhus. Yeah. I'm ready. All right. So Pyrrhus of Epirus was born circa 319 BC, but I did find one source that said he was born October 8th. So that's why we picked it for This Week in History.
Okay.
It's October 8th, so that's the event, and we're done. That's the fastest one I've done.
Sure.
But now we'll go into like the life of Pyrrhus, who he was. Now, Pyrrhus is born in the country of Epirus, which is the western coast of Greece. It's like directly across the sea from like the heel of Italy. It's really close to Italy.
What does that sea? Is it the Aegean?
I don't think that's the Aegean, and now I feel stupid that I don't know it, and I turned off my phone so I can't look it up.
Well, tell you what, we'll put a picture of it here anyway. Maybe it'll be
I
labeled
actually
as
have an event that takes place on the other side of it, so I needed that anyway.
All right.
But anyway, so he was born in Epirus to, it's a tricky pronunciation, Aeacides. It's Aeacides. Aeacides, I think it's A. And Phthia. Phthia. 4 consonants in a row is rude. So I just call her Pythia. I think it's Phthia, but it probably has a little bit of a pronunciation to it.
Yeah.
Now, Aeacides is a cousin of Olympias, who we talked about last week. She is Alexander the Great's mom.
Huh.
So that makes him like a second cousin of... I think it technically is a second cousin of Alexander. What it for sure does is it makes Pyrrhus a second cousin of Alexander the Great.
Okay. Cool.
Which is awesome. He's a contemporary of the greatest general possibly in history. Well, at least one of them.
Do they know each other?
I don't believe so, because Alexander was off doing his thing.
Yeah.
And but we'll get into that.
Pyrrhus was being born.
Correct. So his name means red-haired or flame-colored. So he might be a redhead.
He might be.
That would be interesting. There are a few Greeks that were red-headed.
It'd be strange to name him that if he wasn't.
That would be. It would be really weird.
Yeah.
But as far as like the shade goes, who knows? Fire can be a lot of different colors.
I'm gonna start calling you Redhead.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, Redhead.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it. Call me Pyrrhus.
Perfect.
Sounds great. Now, Aeacides was a prince of Epirus. His dad was one of the kings. In this time, it was common for some Greek kingdoms to have 2 kings rule at the same time.
Oh.
Kind of like how the Romans had the consuls.
Okay. A backup king.
Yeah, it was kind of like a backup king. They're supposed to rule equally, but sometimes there was
Surely, yeah.
force of personality. That guy was better suited. Sometimes one was better suited for war, one was better suited for peace. There were times where they didn't get on at all.
This is my at-home king.
Yep.
And this is one of my traveling kings.
Well, the Spartans did that a lot.
Sure.
They would have when we go to war, you lead the army and I'll stay back, but sometimes they would switch over with like alternative kings. So like Leonidas, the famous Spartan 300 guy, he was one of 2 kings at the same time, and he went off to war, and then his co-king stayed back.
Okay.
At the time, he's considered the greater warrior, so that might have been why they sent him.
Sure.
But in this case, so Aeacides' dad dies, and his son takes over. Aeacides is now in charge.
How it goes.
Now, this is after Alexander is out of the picture.
Okay.
Okay. And Aeacides is dealing with the fallout of that.
Oh, no.
They called it the Diadochi. It's Diadochi. It's Diadochi is how it's kind of spelled. But these are the guys that were the loyal servants of Alexander, and then after he died, it just turned into like a free-for-all.
Yeah.
So it's the
Power of
Diadochi.
vacuum. That happens all the time.
It does. So they also call this the
Write
war.
a will, folks.
Yeah. This also is called the War of the Successors. Now, one of the major guys is Cassander. He's a very belligerent Macedonian warlord who basically wants to take over Alexander's original kingdom that he started with.
Not like those nice, reasonable warlords.
Yeah, I mean, some warlords have like a cause.
Sure, I guess.
Yeah, but no, yeah, this guy was disliked.
No one's called a warlord, and they're like, he's a really charming
He's
guy,
a
though.
nice guy.
He's just quiet.
You could be a charming warlord,
I guess.
but you're also a killer.
Yeah,
That's a requirement. Like, I'm sure Julius Caesar was charming, but the dude was a warlord. Like, Genghis Khan was probably very charming when he wanted to be, until he, sent you off to the White Mountain and made a mountain of skulls out of you. Anyway, Cassander was one of the belligerents. He was one of the leading fighter types. Yep. And he ran afoul of Olympias, Alexander's mom.
Oh.
She wanted him out of Macedonia. She did not like him.
Out.
He was causing problems for her. So she called in her cousin, Icy and he shows up.
Icy days?
Icy days. I think it's Icy days. Icy days. It's when it gets really cold. It's
Yeah,
icy
that's
days.
what I thought.
Icy days shows up with an army and helps fight.
Yeah.
Temporarily drives off Cassander. Has to come back. But the second time, his guys are not fond of the idea of marching out of their country to fight for a foreign queen, for something that they don't want to fight in. Typically, that's not great. And this is a time period where, like, the rule of you have to do whatever the government tells you to do as a soldier, so you do it.
Yeah.
That's not how Greeks work.
Oh.
So his soldiers mutiny and go home.
Well, I would think at any point you have to sell a war.
Yeah, and he wasn't apparently a great salesman. Because his army said, nope, we're out. And by the time he got to Macedonia, his army was mostly gone. He had some guys, but it wasn't enough to do anything. So he goes home, but by the time he gets back, the army that returned were done with him. So they dethroned him. You're not the king anymore. And they kick him out.
Rough.
Yeah, so Alcides is like, I don't have my kingdom, and these people will probably try to kill
failed.
me.
He tried to get more, and he lost what he even had.
This is what you get for trying to help family. So he goes into, like, hiding. He has to run off. He takes his family with him. He's got to protect his wife and
That
kids.
sounds like a little fun family vacation.
It's a little vacation. Follow me, kids. Don't look back. Don't you stray behind. Like, don't get left behind, because we're not coming back for you.
What fun.
But isn't this fun? They're swinging the kids, and the city's burning behind them. There's soldiers slowly trying to catch up. Like, just keep going, kids. Just keep going. They eventually settle in Illyria, which is a nearby kingdom. It seems like it's a bit of a rougher country, because these guys get referred to as barbarians a few times by fellow Greeks. Like, they're considered more coarse.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be nomadic, but their concept of, like, civility might not be as established as what some of the other Greeks are.
Barbaric,
A little more barbaric, a little rougher,
Yeah.
Really, that's probably all it is they just don't build giant palaces. But, if a culture is different than yours, you tend to disparage it, and that's what ends up happening a little bit later. But they become kind of protected by the king of these Illyrians. His name is Glaucius.
Glaucius?
And Glaucius is, he's a renowned fighter, king, and he's the leader of these people. And he takes them in and is like, okay, well, I'll help you guys out. Nice guy.
Sure, sounds like a nice guy.
Doesn't turn out to be a not nice guy.
Oh.
Rare instance of just stays being a pretty nice guy.
Weird lack of spoilers.
Now, I'm sure that there's a selfish motivation. You
Surely.
help another king
Yeah.
in exile, then when he comes back as king, then you know,
Surely.
you get some money, you get a little bit of aid, or a trade partner, or something like that.
Yeah, something. A card.
Something. Maybe a feast.
Perhaps a dinner.
Something nice.
Go to coffee sometime.
Yep. Now, Glaucus is a good host, and while he's doing this, Icies is trying to basically get his kingdom back.
Okay.
So Cassander is bouncing around doing stuff. He's kind of a main problem during all of this.
Who's Cassander?
Cassander was one of the
just a guy.
the Diadochi.
Okay, we don't know
guys.
his family. He was just a guy.
He's one of the guys vying for Alexander's throne.
I'm sure he's more than just a guy.
Right. Yeah, he's a king.
Okay.
But he's causing problems, but he's mostly out in Asia now.
Okay.
But it seems like the guys who replaced Aecides are kind of pro Cassander. So that's like if Cassander's a threat, those guys are a threat, and vice versa. But Aecides gets some troops together, and he goes back. He fights 2 battles and loses them both. And in the second battle, he's badly wounded, and he succumbs to his wounds and he dies. So Epirus...
We barely knew you.
Yep. Epirus is 11 at this time.
Hey.
And Glaucius is like, you know what? I liked your dad, and I see an opportunity for everybody involved. Let's go put you on your throne.
Oh.
So he marches an army into Epirus with Pyrrhus. Gets tricky with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You had said earlier Epirus is 11. You meant Pyrrhus is
11. Sorry.
Pyrrhus 11.
Epirus is the country.
Going to the city.
Yes.
All right.
Doesn't help when I stutter and I go, Pyrrhus.
Okay.
That doesn't help at all.
Right.
I will try to be more clear. So yes. So Pyrrhus is 11 at this point.
Yeah.
So he's not considered like king level yet.
Sure.
He's
Crown
like,
barely fits.
it just kind of, it's a necklace.
Yep.
It's a big necklace. So Glaucius is his protector. He's going to have a vested interest in whatever's going on in the kingdom. From what I was reading, he's not in charge. He's got his own kingdom to run.
Okay.
But he's going to have people around this kid that are going to hook him up.
Once again, Glaucius being the good guy.
Being the good guy.
Yeah.
Now, Glaucius puts him on the throne, sets him up so that he has good advisors, probably puts some soldiers around him to protect him because he's just out of rebellion.
And he's 11.
And then Glaucius goes home.
Bye, kid. Good luck.
And-
Have fun
Yep.
running the castle.
Now, Pyrrhus seems to do well for 6 years. For 6 years, he's running the kingdom
Wow.
either through administrators
Man, all
and
through
advisors.
his middle school era.
Yep, he's running a kingdom. At some
You
point,
thought your middle school at time was tough. Try running a kingdom.
try running a kingdom, but only kind of.
Hey, everyone, stop beating on me. I'm the
Don't
king.
fight! Mom, why do I have weird chest hair? Dad never told me about it because he died.
Get back on the throne.
Okay. There's a girl. I don't know what to say to her. Do I tell her I like her? Can I tell her I'm the king?
My armor fits funny.
It doesn't work. I don't like this.
Anyway.
So now that's going to be Pyrrhus for
Sorry,
the rest
Pyrrhus.
of this.
Just
Sorry.
for the time
Just
he
for
was
the time
ruling.
being. For the time being.
He's
Now,
17 now. He's a man.
Yeah, at 17, he goes to visit basically Uncle Glaucius, his family friend, who's having a wedding for one of his sons. This is a big event, so kings are supposed to go visit.
Yeah.
When he goes to visit Glaucius, the rebels take over his throne again.
Yeah, you can't leave for a second.
He just leaves for like 5 seconds. And Glaucius is to go to visit his family friend who's like saved his family multiple times. And he loses his throne. This time Glaucius can't come running with an... He's like,
I'm in
I
the
have
middle of a
helped you guys-
wedding.
I've helped you guys so many times.
Yep.
I can't.
No,
I can't.
Glaucius,
I just
you're
can't.
done. All right, that's fine.
I just can't. I'm sorry, kiddo.
Fine. Makes sense.
But Pyrrhus is now at an age where he can start doing things on his own. He's an adult. He's 17.
17.
That's old enough
Old
to
enough.
make babies and kill people. That's the most important thing at this time period. Can you make babies? Can you kill people? I suppose also farming. It's one of the, like, you get
Can you
a trade.
Can you create?
You
and
make babies.
Create and take life.
Yeah, can you create and take life, and then you need some kind of trade.
Okay.
Whether that's kingship,
It could be
whether
making-
that's farming, whether
making
that's
life.
pottery, it can be taking life, soldiering. And soldiering is very, like, being a mercenary in Greece is a totally legitimate job. Like, that's a huge thing. There are military detachments that go around it. Everybody's fighting everybody. The successors don't show, like, any sign of stopping. They're all cutting out little territories for themselves. Well, little compared to Alexander's empire. Huge swaths of land for everybody else. Like Egypt.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is when Egypt becomes like a Greek country. So we have Ptolemy becoming his own king. Cleopatra's like great grandfather.
Okay.
So he's the guy who founded that whole, like, remember there were like 17 Ptolemies or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever? He's the first one.
Good
so
name.
that guy's running things at this time too. He's a contemporary.
Okay.
So off goes Pyrrhus to become a soldier. He enlists in the army of his brother-in-law. His sister got married off to a guy named Demetrius. Demetrius is the son of a king. He's from Thessaly, which is another chunk of like another kingdom.
Sure.
He is well respected, good general, and his dad is one of the Diadochi. He's one of the successor guys.
So the guys who want to be king.
Yes, these are they're part of the I think it's the Antigonines or the Antigonines. So Antigone, that name. This guy's name is Antigonus.
Okay.
So the Antigone family, they are important for the rest of our story.
Okay. Antigone, that's is that the first Greek tragedy story?
I think it is.
It's up there.
It's one. If it's not the first, it's a really early one.
Gouge eyes out thing. I think I never won.
You are thinking of
Oedipus?
Oedipus, where the eye gouge. I mean, there are probably multiple.
I think something terrible happens in Antigone as well, but
something awful.
I don't remember it all.
Usually does. There's Antigone. I think there's like Medea is one of the early ones.
No. All right. But that's not what the story is about anyway.
But that's not
so
what the
we'll
story
look
is
up.
about. But the name is important because this family name is based on Antigonus. Antigonus is fighting Cassander. Doesn't like him. So this is probably why Pyrrhus is like, oh yeah, I want in on that. I hate that guy because he got my daddy killed. Like this, he's the cause of some family issues. Now, so he's not put in like a special position really. Like he's given like a leadership spot because he's a noble, but he's not given more than he can handle.
Yeah, because also.
Because he's a kid.
Yeah. Welcome to the army, kid.
Yep.
Yeah, you're in the army. Sure.
Yep. Good luck. Now, these guys are getting ready for a kind of a climactic battle. It is the Battle of Ipsus, which probably deserves its own episode.
Okay.
But it's a pretty big deal, and it's considered like the largest and most decisive battle of the War of the Successors.
Do you know when that takes place in? I mean, the week?
I think I should look up the week.
Okay.
This is like in the, let's see, I think it's in like 301 or 302 BC.
Yeah.
I could look it up.
I was just wondering if we should have it be its own thing.
I'm going to look it up. I'll look it up because it's a good one. And this kind of, this alters like the literal landscape of the world. Like it creates deciding lines of territory and who goes where and who does what. Unfortunately, Antigonus does not win this war.
No.
Antigonus
how badly does he lose?
he it's ultimately.
Oh.
Antigonus. So Demetrius is given the right flank, which is like position of honor.
Yep.
And he and Pyrrhus are like side by side fighting. Apparently, it's listed a couple of times now. Our main sources for this are Cassius Dio and Plutarch, who are like early AD people. So that's like the earliest information.
So 300 years later.
So yeah, hundreds of years later. There's also
we should write some of this down.
There's also Dionysius of
Dionysius
of I can't remember where he's.
Dionysius is the
god
of
parties.
Wine.
Yep. He's a good one to hang out with. So our sources, some of them are a little different on who did what and what happened where. But apparently, he fought really, really valiantly and like bravely to the point where Demetrius said he's going to be an amazing general if he lives long enough. Because I imagine he's running out and killing people. Like, okay, you're really good at this, but you're a little overeager and you're going to end up dead.
This is Pyrrhus?
Pyrrhus is doing this. So Pyrrhus is charging off like a madman. Now,
he ended up living.
And he does live.
Not like the other guy.
He does live. Okay. So does Demetrius. But Demetrius' dad, who's one of the successors, dies. Unfortunate, but Demetrius now, he's like, okay, this isn't good. But his flank of the battle wins their side. But typically the battle is, there's three chunks. There's the left, the center, and the right.
Yeah.
Well, when your left and your center lost...
Defense, offense, and special teams.
Yeah, so special teams did really well.
Okay, good. But you can't win. You can't win the game with that.
I mean, I think you can win with special teams.
I don't know. I'm not a...
I think that's a thing.
I shouldn't have brought the football metaphor in.
I think you can.
I'm weak enough on...
Isn't that like field goals?
I've done my entire knowledge.
Okay, that's it. We're plumbing the depths of it. I feel like we should know more because Green Bay. But anyway... So they really do well on their flank. They blast through, and then they kind of look around and go, Dad's dead.
Ooh.
The rest of the army is basically annihilated and has lost the war.
Yeah.
We're going home.
Well, this has been fun, but
Yep.
we have to go.
So they take their troops and they withdraw back to Thessaly, where they're from.
Okay.
That's not considered dishonorable because the alternative is they stand there and they die.
Yeah, well,
Or
sometimes
they
you
get
gotta-
captured and sold
A
into...
tactical retreat.
It is. It does a really, they do a really good job of getting home. Such a good job, in fact, that it allows them to sue for peace and make a treaty.
Oh, okay.
They end up making a peace treaty with King Ptolemy in Egypt, who's part of these wars.
Yeah.
Part of the treaty, oftentimes, is to offer up hostages.
Sure. You can't just...
Hostages at this time are not like, anybody enters and the hostage gets it. It's much more polite than that. The
Okay.
hostages usually live well.
Okay.
They,
Like prisoner of war, if you were?
we're talking like if it's a noble, they live in a palace.
Okay.
Which is what happens to Pyrrhus.
Okay.
For some reason, Pyrrhus is requested as the hostage, probably because he's the son of a king and the heir to a throne. He did well enough so that he's like a soldier of station, and he's close to Demetrius. I feel like Pyrrhus kind of resents this. So remember this. 'cause
Okay.
He's probably not happy being used as a bargaining
Well,
chip.
yeah, well, who would
He
be?
probably doesn't have any say in it, though.
Yeah.
Because he's, a king without a kingdom, and his closest family members just sold him, down the river, basically.
Thanks, fam.
Good job. Fortunately for him, though, Ptolemy's a pretty cool dude.
Okay.
Ptolemy likes him, he respects him, and he allows him to marry his stepdaughter.
Hey!
Now, his
Win-win.
stepdaughter is tied to, like, Macedonian royalty.
Okay.
So that's good marriage
all right.
material for him.
Sure.
Like, good job
But
for
is
him.
she nice?
I think so. He winds up with a second wife. That doesn't mean that things didn't go well with the first wife. He might have
knows?
had multiple wives.
Okay.
That was not uncommon. Like Philip of Macedon had multiple wives. Might have been why he got killed, though.
Okay.
Alexander had multiple wives at the same time. Not how he died. So, see, it works out differently.
Either way, when picking your multiple wives, be careful.
Be very careful, as he'll learn.
Okay. I didn't even know that was a spoiler.
That's a spoiler. Spoiler. Yeah.
Never mind,
be
I'll say the
careful.
same thing later.
Yep. Be careful.
Got it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, make sure everything's copacetic with
Sure.
everybody involved.
It's
Two
trucky.
consenting adults, whatever.
It's
but
trucky. It's trucky.
don't
It's
do it. It's trucky. It's trucky to rock around. It's trucky. Right? That's the song?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
From Run GMC.
Run GMC. It's just a... It's a car that won't start. Originally, please run GMC.
Go on.
I'm moving right along. Yeah, Pyrrhus is doing all right. He's married to Ptolemy's stepdaughter.
Yep.
Good stuff happens. And then so this was in 298 where he gets sent off as a hostage.
Yes.
So
He is sent off to be a
he
hostage?
gets sent off to
Okay.
be a hostage. So he's like, he's
Hey.
still young.
Hey, I'm here to be a hostage.
Hi. I'm a
Oh, we've
hostage.
been expecting you. Come on
I'm
in.
a hostage. Crap.
I got to marry an Egyptian woman.
Well, now
That's
his
nice.
voice is
Yeah,
is coming.
surely
up.
he's an elf.
Yeah, he's doing well now. Because he is now 21, I think.
He can finally drink.
So he can drink.
Have
Although
a
I feel like
Macedonian beer.
I think in the Greek world, you just drank.
Yeah.
It's
The wine flowed in the rivers.
it's bad enough. Then they're just like, you know what? Let him drink, dude. Just let him drink. So in 297, so a year later, Cassander dies.
Just
I didn't look up how.
No, just-
Might have been
alright.
battle. Might have been
Okay.
age. Might have been poison.
Okay.
There's a lot of that going around.
Could have, yeah.
I hear it's catching this year.
Poison?
Poison's catching a lot. It seemed a very popular thing. Could have been dynastic struggle. Could have been murder.
Could have been,
I didn't look it up.
yeah. Okay.
What I did know is that he's dead now, and that's a good thing for like everybody
Except
except Cassander.
Cassander.
And maybe his family.
Sure.
And
his friends.
Ptolemy sees this as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
He can make a strong ally, an even stronger ally,
Oh.
by giving Pyrrhus his old kingdom back.
Oh.
Because he has the power to do this.
Okay.
So he collects he gets some money together, he gets some soldiers together, and he sends Pyrrhus off with his best wishes and his stepdaughter to go reclaim his kingdom. Pyrrhus gets there and realizes probably the best way to come back as king is not to kill a bunch of your people.
I mean, it makes a splashy entrance.
It does. It literally splashy. Blood everywhere. But he decides he'll talk to the current king, who I think his name is Lycomedes, and says, well, let's go to the co-rulership thing. We were going to eventually we were going to be co-rulers anyway.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Because the other option...
The other option is war. This lasts for like a day. Apparently this king is not popular with any of the nobles.
Okay.
Pyrrhus doesn't like him. So Pyrrhus, they start scheming immediately.
Okay.
Pyrrhus calls him to dinner
Hey.
and has him murdered.
Hey.
With 0 consequences.
Oh.
A world where murder has 0 consequences. So, from 298 forward, Pyrrhus is the sole ruler of the kingdom of Epirus. Good job, Pyrrhus.
He did try for 24 hours to not.
Yep, I tried really hard to not
I
be.
tried to not kill
But
you.
yeah, it's within the same year of him going off and being in charge that he
Yeah.
just is like, nope, I'm done with this crap,
Okay.
and kills him. Not sure how. It just says murdered. Usually it would say poison, so I think it was a knifing,
Ooh.
like a bunch of guys set on him and just murdered him.
Okay.
It's very unpleasant. Now he's king. Yay for Pyrrhus.
Yay. I still don't know if he's the good guy or the bad guy in this.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it wasn't Lycomedes. It was Neoptolemus. The reason I wrote that down is because Neoptolemus is the same name as Achilles' son from the Trojan War stories.
But
It's
different
not
guy.
super important, but what is interesting to me, though, the reason I wrote that is because Neoptolemus in the stories is red-haired.
Oh.
And then Pyrrhus is tied to it. It's very interesting how Greek stories tie together with some of their history.
Okay.
It's interesting. And then with Alexander being so obsessed with Achilles and Patroclus and all of that story, having this red-haired general guy show up at like the same time, pretty cool. So Pyrrhus is now ruling. He's the sole ruler of Epirus. Good for him. And he immediately decides he's gonna be a warrior king.
Why not?
Why not?
It was
Why
fun.
not? What else is there to do? Plus, his second cousin like almost conquered the world. If he hadn't died,
he was so close. I could do it.
Yeah,
I could do
he's
the
like,
thing.
well, I can fight. I'm a good general. I'm a good soldier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. And the first person he attacks is Demetrius, the guy who sold him off as a hostage.
Well,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So Demetrius is fighting in Thebes. Thebes is a remarkably fortified city. There have been a lot of people who've tried to take it, who have taken it, who've had battles for it. It's part of Greek mythology. It's very famous.
Is there an oracle there?
I think there is an oracle
I
in
think
Thebes.
there is.
They might have killed an oracle at Thebes as well.
I'm sure they have an oracle in every
Lots
city.
of oracles. But yeah, so Thebes was being
Consult your
besieged.
local oracle if you have any questions.
And Pyrrhus sees this as an opportunity to take Thessaly. The king is gone with his army.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So in marches Pyrrhus
War is fun.
with his army.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, if you're a king, you're going to hear about your kingdom getting invaded. And it's a large body of foot soldiers walking towards your kingdom. So he stops his siege and walks back, and Pyrrhus goes, ooh, that's a lot of guys, and goes home.
War is not as fun.
War like this for like 6 years. Oh, no.
I don't think he's doing war right.
For 8 years, they go back and forth. I counted no less than 6 invasions and counter invasions.
Okay.
So Pyrrhus goes into Thessaly. Demetrius goes to meet him. Pyrrhus goes home. Demetrius marches into Epirus, and then while he's doing that, Pyrrhus marches into Thessaly, and they take separate roads, so they cross each other like in the night, and just start raiding each other's kingdoms.
Great.
Thessaly's richer, so Demetrius comes back, and then Pyrrhus goes home.
They're all stuck with
They're all stuck.
jewelry
Now,
that doesn't
he
fit
manages
them.
to have a battle during this with Demetrius's like second in command guy, not second hand guy. It's his most trusted general.
You are my number one guy.
Number one. So Pyrrhus he gets a big win under his belt. He fights an army of 11,000 men with his 20,000, so he's got an advantage. Apparently the battle was really, really fierce, and Pyrrhus was able to get a win, captures 5,000 of the enemy, and then marches back towards Thessaly. Like, all right, fine, we're going to follow up this win. And Demetrius is like marching towards him. Pyrrhus is like, I need to go faster, so he like frees the prisoners. They have another battle. This goes on and on and on and on and on. These guys just they make peace, and then they break it, and then they make peace, and then they break it. They wind up having like a fight over here, so then this guy goes to fight him, and it's just utter chaos.
I'm sure this is great fun for the standard army people.
People love it. Yeah.
Oh, we're doing another battle? All right,
Yeah,
let's go.
they're really, really happy about it. By the time he's done with all of this warring, and like Demetrius winds up fighting off against like Cassander's family and coming back and dealing with all this nonsense. Eventually, though, Pyrrhus is able to get a total win.
Finally.
He winds up being king of Thessaly.
Hey.
Or Thessaly, not Thessaly. That's Sicily.
Right.
That shows up later as well.
Okay.
So he rules over Thessaly, and then he's also able to get alliances with other kings, and one of them is the king of Macedon, and he helps that guy like take control of Macedon, and then he's given half of the kingdom as like co-ruler as well. So he gets basically half of Macedon, all of Thessaly, and then also owns his kingdom, his own kingdom. So this is like the height of his power. He owns a big chunk of Greece. He's doing very, very well for himself.
All these places are not named these things anymore, are they? Some of the cities are, I guess.
The cities are, and I think a lot of these kingdoms are regions now. So like Macedonia is like a region of Greece. It's like a province kind of a thing. Some of the smaller, like the island kingdoms, still have like their same name, like Lesbos, Crete. Those have their names. Minos, I think, is still its own thing.
Anyway.
So yeah. Unfortunately, though, because he's kind of in the ascendant, the other kings at this time keep going, okay, well, we don't want anybody becoming too powerful. So there's a little bit of a scheme where Ptolemy becomes allies with the king of Macedon, and they basically unite to kick Pyrrhus out of Macedon.
Mm.
Like, they raise an army, and he's like, you know what? I don't want to rule this stupid kingdom with you. I'm going back to Epirus, and I'm just going to stay there.
Okay.
And he does.
You show him.
Now, by now, he's built up his reputation as a general. I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird because like a lot of his fights is just maneuvering.
Yeah, not a lot of wins on that scoreboard.
Right, like
there.
when he fights, he wins, but he also dodges a lot of battles. Like, so if you've never fought the battle, you technically don't lose.
Yeah.
It's all at this point, like a lot of it is just maneuvering.
Okay.
But when he's actually in the field, he does very, very well for himself. So it's a
top-
stupid idea to fight a battle you know you won't win.
Right.
But it also comes across as kind of craven because you're like, dude, just hold still so I can crush you, and he just won't.
Right.
And then when they invade his land, he gets enough guys together and then attacks them and gets them out of his land. So since he's built up a little bit of a reputation here, a Greek city in southern Italy reaches out to him for help. This city is right at the base of Italy, where like the heel meets the toe of the thing. It's right there.
Oh.
Yes. And the city is called Tarentum. Or Tarentum. Tarentum. Tarantula. Now, this is a Greek city, so like the Greeks would like travel around and they'd colonize places. So like Carthage was a Greek city originally. They have colonies in the Levant and all the way out in Persia now because of Alexander's conquests. I think they have a city. They have a city for sure in India at this time, which is I think Bucephalus, which is named after Alexander's horse, Bucephalus, the ox head. I knew I was going to find a reason to mention him. I knew I was going to find a reason to mention him. Right. So I forgot to name Alexander's horse. He loved this horse so much, had him for 30 years, and when the horse finally died of old age, he's like, I miss my horse. Name that city after him. And they did.
Wow.
I don't know what the city is nowadays, but it was the site of a city. Dude loved his horse. I mean, it carried him through battle, and
I mean, he probably talked to it a lot.
probably was his buddy,
Yeah.
and then it died.
Poor
Sad.
Bucephalus.
Yeah, this is his buddy.
Okay.
Like losing if you lose a dog,
Sure.
that's sad. This is a horse he had for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
In the city after my dog.
Yeah, and then, but also they fought together.
Yeah.
So it's like his best war buddy, loyalist friend, dead. City named after.
City name.
That's pretty
Done.
cool. I don't have any cities named after me. That'd be great. So Tarentum is having problems with Rome. Rome is not yet like a world power.
No.
It is a small republic.
7 little hills.
Yep. And it has branched out enough where it does control like its hills. It's a republic at this point, so
Okay.
it doesn't have kings anymore. It's on the rise though. It's beaten up a lot of the neighboring tribes and folded them into its growing lands. It owns a significant chunk of Italy. They've thrown off the kings that were in charge of them, and they're their own place, and they're on the rise. The Greeks see this as a bit of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
If the Romans grow much bigger,
Yeah.
they'll be a threat to the whole Mediterranean.
We won't be the big
And
ones.
yeah, the Greeks won't have. They're like, we don't want the Latins in charge. We want the Greeks in charge. Man. So there's
I hope
colonies.
we don't all grow up learning Latin-based languages. Oh, no.
Oh no. But hey, people still speak Greek.
That's
and
true.
Nobody speaks Latin.
Aha.
Aha. Good job. Spoiler.
Yeah.
You spoiled all of classical history. Thanks,
All
man.
right, sorry.
Good job. So at this time, the Greeks have all of these colonies throughout the world that they know of, their known world. So like modern day Messina is a Greek settlement. They have stuff almost all the way to like France, like southern France.
Greeks do?
The Greeks do. They have all these colonies. And all of the Italian countries, but specifically the Romans, are trying to fight this back because they're like, this is our land. And the Romans are constantly expanding. Like you said, they have their 7 little hills. Well, they
Yeah.
want more than their 7 little hills. That's not enough land. And they just keep, folding other people into their kingdom. Republic. Tarentum has had there's like different versions of what happened. But basically it seems like they were concerned the Romans were going to get, like, you belong to us now.
Yeah.
And you are one city-state, and we are all of this Roman territory.
Yeah, that does sound like a Roman thing to do.
That does sound like a Roman thing to do. So they start looking for help. They need soldiers.
Yep.
So they find a guy with a lot of ambition. Pyrrhus.
Pyrrhus.
Now, Pyrrhus has the reputation of being very belligerent, pretty good at war when he actually is involved.
Okay.
So they send for assistance from him. Now, this causes an actual problem within the city because half the people are like, if we call in a Greek king, and they're a democracy, so they don't have a king, but they're like, if we call in a king, it's going to be just as bad as if the Romans take us over. We're going to have to deal with him being our king or the Romans running us.
Right.
We won't be our own independent state. And one of the guys who's pushing this is like a local philosopher and nobleman, and he just wanders around pretending he's drunk all the time to show how awesome life is in the city. Look, guys, we have a lackadaisical, chill lifestyle. Get drunk all day, party, no big deal.
Who's this guy? I want to get his job.
Right?
I feel I'm close.
I think his name is Menon.
Menon.
Menon. I have to double check.
I'm going to look him up.
He seems great.
I like the cut of his jib.
I do too. He's like, why would you guys want to fight anybody else and invite him into their country?
Hey, man.
But he's secretly like sober during all this.
Oh, well.
Because like for a lot of it, because he's got to maintain his brain. Like
Sure.
he's got to have plans.
Well, I guess that's where he and I differ.
But everybody around him gets drunk. So you want to be that guy.
I want to be that guy's friend.
You want to be his friend.
Got it.
Right. He's got the weight of the world weighing down
Sure.
on him and stressing him out. But his
I'm
buddies,
here for you, buddy.
if you're part of the entourage, you're
Yeah.
having a good time.
Yeah.
So he wants to sell this idea, though, of look at this. We have theaters and we have amphitheaters for big speeches and stuff. We have huge lavish feasts and parties. We're doing really well as a society. The last thing we need is some stupid king coming in and running it like it's his,
Kingdom.
own little place. We don't want that. Don't you guys want to live free like this? And a bunch of people are like, yeah, sounds great to me. But
I bet that doesn't work.
an equally large number of people, or probably more, are terrified that the Romans are going to march down south and just conquer their city.
Yeah.
And the Roman military at this point is turning into the Roman legion. They're well respected for their ability to fight. It's totally different than the Greek phalanx. They have a totally different fighting style. And these people are not prepared for that. They're one city-state that's pretty populous, but they're partiers, right? This is a party city.
Yeah.
It's like if Oshkosh tried to go to war with like Milwaukee and Chicago at the same time.
Our international viewers don't know.
Oh yeah, sorry. Do we have international
we
viewers?
might.
So, a small drunk party town
Yes.
of, I don't know, like 40,000 people versus a much larger drunk party town
Versus an army.
of 1 million. And if you don't know what Chicago is, it's a very big city. Shame on you. But the idea being, it's a small independent state
Yeah.
versus...
Who just
this
want to
republic.
have a good
And
time,
they do,
man.
They just want to... It's a great concept. This town sounds fantastic. And it's not like decadent and wasteful. It seems like it also still functions.
What town are we talking about?
This is Tarentum.
Oh yeah.
Tarentum.
Oh, yeah, we have a
Tarentum.
picture of it and everything.
Yeah, and it's these guys just want to have the life they're used to, which is what most people want,
Sure.
just to maintain the life they have. The Romans, on the other hand, are like, mine.
Right.
They don't want that. They want that land and they want that port because it's in a pretty good chunk of land. It's right, like I said, right between the heel and the toe of the boot.
Yeah.
It's right in that little
The
crux
arch-
there.
the arch.
It's a great spot for a port. Romans want that. Plus, if they control all of southern Italy, wonderful for them. So
Okay.
there's all of this drama going on, and they're like, Pyrrhus, this guy's gonna come in. So Manon, the guy pretending to be the drunk, he loses the debate. Like, he has a speech and everything, and the crowd's like, yeah, great. But the fearful people who are terrified of the Roman legions marching in and possibly enslaving them, because the Romans are all about slavery and just crushing other kingdoms and then Romanizing them. Because what the Romans will oftentimes do is they'll destroy, they'll depopulate a city. They'll take the people out of it and either put them in as slaves or bring them back to Rome and force them to live in Rome. And then they'll put Romans in that city. So that in they plan generationally, so that in a couple generations, the people they've brought to Rome become Roman. And then their Roman way of living goes to all of these other cities.
Right.
It's brilliant. It's, I don't think, moral in any way.
No, it sounds
Sounds
terrible.
pretty horrible.
Yeah.
But
Like a parasite.
it right, yes. It's like a transfusion. It's like a blood transfusion. But they take the old stuff out and then they put it in. But it gets diluted by being thrust into Rome, and then Rome's just like, yeah, you're part of us now.
Yeah.
So that all of like the cultures that were around them, there's not really much known about them. Like the Etruscans, we don't really know much about them. They were like a mystery civilization that lived at the same time, but they all got Romanized. They got destroyed, and then they got folded into Roman culture, and then
You've
Rome
been
took it all over.
Romanized. All right.
That's a thing. And the Greeks don't want that. They have their own culture that they're pretty darn proud of, and they're like, we don't like this.
Greece is the word, man.
Yeah. So they call in to Pyrrhus finally because after Manon does his speech and the people who are terrified, they get to react. And they exile him from the city. They don't kill him. But they basically rise up and like, you're out. Your idea is stupid, Manon. We're not a party city, and we'd rather have this certifiable badass come in with his mercenary army of professional soldiers and help us out than we're just gonna drink it, we'll be fine, because we're not gonna be fine. So fear wins the day, and Pyrrhus is summoned. There are a couple versions of what happens with
Okay.
Pyrrhus.
Yeah.
The large theory is, or the large and kind of consensus is that he pretty much rushes there. He doesn't wait for spring, for better weather.
I heard it was a party city, man.
He just wants to get there.
Yeah.
And this starts to create kind of a concept. This is the beginning of the idea of Greek mercenary armies being hired to do stuff.
Okay.
It's used by the Carthaginians and the Romans throughout their wars later in centuries later on. The Greeks at this time just really, really like to fight, and they're quite good at it. They make good soldiers because it's built into their society that adults train to fight, specifically adult males. The women probably know how to swing a sword, but they're not folded into the army. That's
Okay.
not how things work. So Pyrrhus is kind of like the tip of the spear of this. He's the beginning of kings going off to fight for foreign interests in the area. And it's interesting because they don't really say, like, we're going to pay you a bunch of money. They send him gifts and everything. But he probably sees this as an opportunity to take loot and spoils from anything he conquers. And then also getting to keep the land he conquers.
Oh.
So they basically open the door to a foreign conqueror and offer support.
Yeah.
They promise him like 20,000 soldiers to help him out, a bunch of cavalry, all the supplies he could possibly want, and he's like salivating over this. He gets all of the kingdom on board. Epirus is just like, yes, let's do this. He's got guys volunteering left and right. One of the versions of it is that he sails with this huge army of like 40,000 guys, but he does it badly at the wrong time of the year, doesn't care, and he ends up swimming ashore in Rome, or in Italy, with 2,000 men left.
Hey, oh, that's a lot.
He loses the vast majority of his army.
That's in the Mediterranean. That can get rough, right?
Yeah, it can get rough, especially between those two chunks of land.
Yeah.
So that's one version of it. What's more likely is he just didn't have a huge army to begin with and got there.
Okay. Well, either way, somebody got wet.
Either way, yep, it doesn't go terribly well. But he shows up with a smallish army, and he's like, they make him like enter the city without an army at first, and like basically discuss terms because they're like, we don't want you taking over. We don't want a tyrant king. We want.
Yeah, we're not gonna take over. Hold on, just.
Yep. Excuse me.
Oh.
You guys see my hat?
The water's chilly.
My hat. It's just like the classic Greek helmet with the big horsehair plume, but it's just. Yep. Hold on. Okay, we're better. We're good. All right. Where's my sword?
It's at the bottom of the lake.
Crap! Give me your sword. I don't look kingly. All right, I'm the king. So he shows up though with thousands of guys.
Yep.
And at first things go really, really well. At first.
That seems to be the case.
Yep. He establishes control of the city. He sets up rules for his guys because he's basically like, you guys are not allowed to drink with these people because this is a party city.
This is a party city.
And I know that's crap for soldiering.
That's why we are here.
You're here to soldier. The party comes after the soldier.
I signed up for the party city part.
Doesn't matter what you signed up for. I'm the
Sir.
king. Yep, don't care. We get
loot. I wish I had drowned.
You can always go back in the
This
water.
is no fun.
Why don't you go back in the water then? There you go. It's fine. Yeah.
I could have stopped at Crete.
Yeah, you could have. If you'd sailed the wrong freaking direction.
Some island. I'm sure there was some island on the way.
Yeah. Yep. Could have stopped at a little rocky island.
Yep.
I'm sure there was one.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Have fun with that.
Okay.
No one's stopping you.
All right. So they got to fight. All right.
So he starts setting up his guys as like a garrison, and then once he has control of this city, he changes the rules for the rest of the city.
Nice.
You people all party too much.
Yeah.
He shuts down all feasts, the theater, closes the forum, shuts down basically any kind of vice within the city, and then makes it mandatory for everyone to begin military training. Any physically capable male who is not found training to be a soldier is put to death.
He's quickly gone from my okay list to my not okay
Yeah,
list.
it's not great. Because he says, you guys called me to war. I'm not doing all the fighting on my own. You're helping.
But
No buts. You're training. He actually whips these guys into shape into a pretty formidable army.
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure the theater folk loved it.
Yeah, they were over the moon. They didn't have any other option. So yeah, he's actually listed as part of his titles as the Tyrant of Tarentum. That's the actual official title he gets is the Tyrant. Because at the time, tyrant wasn't considered the worst thing in the world. That just meant sole, dictator, ruler. Dictator was also an okay term. But this is probably why tyrant has a negative connotation.
Okay.
Because of this. He's a jerk.
Yeah.
So yeah, he takes away all the fun. He sucks all the fun out of the city. It goes from a lively, bright, colorful place to, I just imagine, shades of gray and lots of bronze because that's their armor.
Sure.
And they're going to go stab everything.
Yeah.
Yay. And then he immediately plans to fight the Romans.
Sure, why not?
Yep.
What else we doing?
Well, that's the plan. The Romans are like, oh crap, this guy's for real. And he's got a bit of a reputation. Well, run away.
Okay.
So the Romans that are nearby try to run, And then the locals catch him in an ambush, but because the Romans have local prisoners, they literally hide behind them.
Oh.
And the guys who ambush him go, oh, no, I know that guy. And they let him leave.
Okay, then good.
They're not monsters. So they go back to Rome. And they're like, so, the stuff in the south is getting bad fast.
Yeah.
We need to handle this. This Pyrrhus guy is for real. And he's made an army that's pretty impressive. So the Romans do the Roman thing. They call the Senate to order, raise an army, send off one of the consuls to lead it. Over the next, 5 years, so this starts in 280 BC. This is the start of what they call the Pyrrhic War. There is the Battle of Heraclea, which is their first major engagement, and Pyrrhus wins pretty handily. Apparently, he brought war elephants with him.
Well, that's why the ship sank.
Which is also why I don't think as many ships sank as they claim. Because if he showed up with just a crappy little army, how did he get the war elephants there? And the war elephants are from the Greek world. The Romans are not used to war elephants at all. Yeah. They don't have like the huge spears. They don't fight like that. Their spears are much shorter. Their lines are not as deep. And they're not prepared for a frickin' giant death monster that is just pure rage and basically a tank to come charging at them.
How do they get those on a boat?
Carefully. I think you have like 2 in a boat, tops.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's just them. And you have guys whose entire life is to keep the elephant happy and calm. Maybe.
Could be a good gig.
Could be a good gig.
Don't worry, elephant. As soon as you get to Party City, it's going to be all right.
It's kind of like how knights, when they went to war, they had grooms, several of them usually, to take care of the horse because this was a beast of death.
Yeah.
And also your transportation. So you wanted to take really good care of it.
Sure, yeah.
Taking care of an elephant, that's key.
Yeah.
Like, you got to keep him alive and happy. So unlike like at the Battle of Gaugamela, which we just talked about, where the elephants were like tired and they sucked and they didn't do anything, this guy actually knows how to use war elephants. He might have actually rode one of them into battle too. The versions of this are different.
Okay.
Apparently, the elephants did so much damage that the Romans almost lost their entire army just from these like 20 war elephants rampaging through their lines. And if one of the and in one of the versions of this, the elephants like do like their trumpet sound, and it kind of makes the rest of the army pause because they're like, "Is the elephant okay?"
Yeah.
And they don't want their elephants rampaging through their own lines, so they stop the fighting. And that might have spared the majority of the Romans who would have died.
Oh.
Like, it was a total rout. They're like, what the hell is this giant death thing coming? He's kind of cute with the floppy ears. Oh, God, he just flattened 50 people.
Ew.
And they knew how to get the elephants, like, worked up into battle. So, and then they had guys on top of them shooting at people with bows and arrows. So, it's a tank.
Sounds like fun for everyone except the elephant.
Yep.
All right.
Although they did put armor on the elephant, to keep
maybe
the
kind of
elephants
fun.
happy
Who knows?
and safe.
Actually,
And also, I think like poking an elephant with a spear is probably like the equivalent of rubbing like a pointed stick against a person. It's not going to do a ton of damage.
Okay.
And then you get more food. But yeah, using beasts of war is kind of
Yeah.
If you're an animal lover, none of that's okay.
Don't do it, kids.
Don't do it. That's why we don't use horses in the military anymore.
So we should just have party cities. Sorry.
Yeah, we should have dance-offs and sing-offs instead.
I'm not going to let this go.
No, that's
All
fine.
right.
Party City.
Keep going.
Party City sounds great.
Dance-offs. Like breakdancing contests.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's a great idea. Having acting troops sort out disputes.
Yeah.
Our actors are better than yours. Calm down. I'm for it.
Yeah, but everyone's got swords. All right.
Yep.
go on.
And
Every critic's got a sword.
every critic's got a sword. We didn't like your performance. Ah! Yep. I'm working on it. So he wins really handily at Heraclea.
Yeah.
Go, Pyrrhus! You crushed it, man.
Oh.
And he follows up with the Battle of Asculum. Now, Asculum didn't go as well. He won, maybe.
Okay.
I think it was Asculum. It was either Asculum or Beneventum.
Sounds like Pyrrhus has the most ties
Oh, it's Asculum.
of
It's
any
Asculum.
warrior we've talked about.
Yes, in this battle, there's 3 different versions of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
One says he won.
Yep.
One says he lost.
Oh.
And the other guy says it was a tie.
Well, there you go.
So, average,
Sure.
we go with tie.
Sure.
He is quoted as saying, by the guy who said it was a tie, "If we're victorious in one more battle with the Romans, we shall be utterly ruined." That's how many guys they lost in this battle. Like, they won, but
at what cost?
But at what cost? So they didn't do well there. He gets kind of frustrated fighting the Romans, so he goes into Sicily and fights the Carthaginians now. Because they got pulled into the war. The Romans at this time are friends with Carthage. This is before Hannibal. So the Carthaginians are like, yeah, we'll fight them. And he's like, ooh, this is easier. I'm going to conquer some land and steal some stuff. So he ends up conquering Sicily and becoming the king of Sicily for a couple of years. Well, then he wants to go back onto Rome and pursue the fight because basically he's kicked out of Sicily.
Okay.
He's not. He doesn't earn a ton of friends. He's considered like benevolent in victory and benevolent as a king, but because he fights so much, people get battle fatigue.
Yeah.
And because of this also stirred up the Samnites, who have been fighting against the Romans for a long time. And I think it made the Romans kind of beat up on them because they lost like their allies. So they have it in for Pyrrhus and the Romans, and they fight Pyrrhus. He defeats them, kills like 10,000 of them on his way back into Rome. And that's at the Battle of Messina. And then he gets back into Rome and fights at Beneventum. Now, this one, he loses. He loses it badly enough that he's like, all right, I'm done here.
Okay.
I don't want to do this anymore. In total, for over the 5 years of battle... Now, bear in mind, this is we'll get in. He doesn't constantly get new troops, but Rome is a republic that can constantly replenish its numbers. So he can't afford to have big losses.
Right.
So he's winning, and apparently his tactics are pretty solid, but he's usually dealing with huge numbers of soldiers and constant loss and attrition. He can't win a war of attrition. He can win battle after battle after battle.
Yeah.
But he can't replenish his numbers like the Romans can. Even if he's relying on Tarentum, that's a Greek colony, that's one city, and they're kind of sick of him.
Yeah.
Like, most of these people are like, okay, this wasn't that great.
Well, I was sick of him from day one.
Yep. He's winning battles and he's claiming territory because these are the big battles, but he's also like taking cities throughout all of this. So he's actually doing much better than it seems just by these large battles.
Okay.
It's all the small battles that he's winning. He's winning all these skirmishes. He's taking all this land. He's basically got like the southern chunk of Italy and Sicily under his control, allegedly for the Greek colonies and city-states in the area. But he loses this final battle, and his total troops lost are between 18 and 27,000, depending on the sources, guys.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Romans lose between 23,000 and 31,000. So the Romans, in every estimation, lose more, but they can afford to lose more. He can't.
Yeah.
So he goes home eventually.
Okay.
He goes back to Epirus, which has been taken, but not over, but it was left under the protection of Ptolemy, his old
buddy.
His old buddy. Ptolemy does not try to keep it from him. He says, "All right, your kingdom is safe. Have it back."
How's your wife?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So one of the problems that he ran into during his wars with Demetrius was his wife left him because his second wife left him because she refused to live amongst barbarians in court.
Well.
So she took her...
Hit the road, babe.
She left and took her dowry with her, which was a kingdom. Which was Sicily.
Okay.
And she gave it to her new husband. So now, he gets recruited by Sparta, by a prince of Sparta, who is not popular and was basically driven out of the city to go take Sparta. And he's like, ooh, if I control Sparta, I control all the Peloponnesian Peninsula.
Yeah.
And he goes to Sparta, and then it sucks because they're Spartans and they're really tough fighters. So he loses and then he leaves.
Yep.
His son dies.
Sorry.
And before he can really mourn him, he's called off to deal with a dispute in Argos.
Oh.
Now, while he's called to deal with it, another guy is called to deal with. A guy named Antigonus.
Hey.
He's Demetrius' son.
Okay.
They've fought before during those 8 years of wars.
Yeah.
He fought and beat Antigonus. This is the grandson of the first Antigonus. Okay, so there's Antigonus, Demetrius, Antigonus again.
Got it.
And that guy's running the show now for Demetrius. He's marching to Argos with an army as well, because he's going to sort out the problem. They hate each other. To try to get into Argos first, he rushes his army, and Pyrrhus does, under stealth. They get inside and realize the place is full of Macedonians and Thessalians who hate him. They're the army of this Antigonus family, the Antigone family. It causes this huge street brawl. Like, there's no organization. It's just back to back to back battles for every corner, every alley, every direction.
This used to be a nice city.
This was a nice city. Well, the Argives are famous for their brawlers, they're fighters. These are the Argonauts. These are tough people. He's fighting an Argive soldier outside of the guy's own house.
Okay.
And his mom is on the roof watching her baby boy fight a king.
Ooh.
She literally grabs like a terracotta roof tile and biffs Pyrrhus in the skull with it.
Good.
Either killing him immediately or knocking him out cold. So I'm picturing this little old lady like, you leave my son alone! Piff! Down he goes. A Macedonian soldier named Epirus, he gets a name because he decapitates the unconscious or maybe dead king.
Okay.
Ending Pyrrhus's reign of pseudo-terror and constant warfare.
Serves him right for shutting down Party City.
Stop messing with Party City. Now, Antigonus respected Pyrrhus as a great general and a rival, so he has him cremated with all honors and dignity and respect. That's a very common thing at the time.
Sure.
And that is the end of Pyrrhus. Now, Pyrrhus goes down in history. Hannibal Barca, the famous guy who fought against Rome, the famous Hannibal and his elephants and all that guy, he had a huge amount of respect for Pyrrhus and considered him the greatest general apart from Alexander.
Okay.
Up until then.
Was it because he got elephants from him?
It might have been. I think he appreciated his kind of like his spirit of battle. Like he had ideas and he went with it. His tactics were really good. His strategies were really good. He just didn't always have the numbers, and he didn't have much patience.
Yeah.
And unlike Alexander, who had that brilliant tactical and strategic mind, it seems like his tactics are great, but his overall strategy wasn't always brilliant. And he wasn't great at diplomacy. Yep. He was considered a benevolent king who resolved a bunch of issues, but he also would kill off potential threats. He would have people assassinated. If there was a family that could cause him problems later on, he'd send them to a country where he knew they wouldn't survive.
It's diplomacy in its own way.
Diplomacy in its own way. So, but he was, the second Demetrius was like in a different city. He ambushed his country, and then that caused 8 years of unnecessary warfare. Whether or not that was because he's mad at the guy for selling him off as a hostage or whatever, that's kind of lost to history. But then he goes off and he's like, I'm going to be a famous king, general guy and fight for these other people. It seems like he just really liked fighting. He was kind of a Richard the Lionheart, but less of a monster.
Well, then he deserves to die at the hands of an old lady.
Then he, like Richard the Lionheart later, dies in a really stupid way from some random not soldier beaming him with a missile weapon, and down he goes.
I think that's karma.
I think so too. Now, Pyrrhus gets respect as being this great general, which is questionable because it's like he won all these battles and he would win all these minor engagements, but he could never finish the deal. So, like, he really hammered on the Romans, which delayed the Romans conquering everything, but in the end, the Romans still did quite well. If he'd put the final nail in the coffin, Rome might have never been ascendant. He also
Rome was destined to
is
be
the reason why we have the expression a Pyrrhic victory.
Oh.
A Pyrrhic victory is when you fight and you win, but you basically lost so much in the exchange that, well, what's the point?
Yeah. Right.
That's like having an argument with somebody and then they were your friend and you win the argument, but you lost the friend in the exchange. That's and interestingly enough, as much as Hannibal respected him, he had Pyrrhic victories all the time. It wasn't that he lost guys, but like he'd crush Roman armies and just, even though he could crush their armies in the field, he couldn't take Rome itself. So it was kind of considered like a Pyrrhic victory. Okay. You won, but
at what cost?
But at what cost? Or were you able to actually finish it? You won the battle, but you lost the war, kind of a thing. Because, like we saw, he won a bunch of battles, but he still lost the Pyrrhic Wars. He lost Sicily. He lost all of his land, and he ended up with just Pyrrhus, and then he died. And that's the story of Epirus.
Was that the end?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
That's it. I finished almost on time. I'm pretty
Almost
proud of myself.
on
Almost
time.
on time. Yep.
What more to add?
Nope, that's
No?
it. That's it.
That was wonderful.
Don't be a warmongering jerk. I think that seems to be a
I
history
guess.
lesson.
Seems to be the history lesson.
It worked out for one guy so far. Alexander. He didn't die in battle. He won every battle, and then he just got sick.
Well, that was the life of Pyrrhus.
Yep.
Started on October 8th.
Yep.
All the way to when he died.
All the way until he would die.
Next week, we'll do the reverse. We're going to
Yep.
start where the guy died and then work our way backwards.
Work our way back. Well, we'll say
Well,
when
we'll
he
find
died, and then we'll start with his life.
So next week is the death of Jan Žižka
Yes.
in 1424. I
Yep.
don't know what country this is in. Sounds Middle European.
I think it's modern-day Czechoslovakia. I think he's from Prague.
Yeah, it's in the middle of Europe.
Yeah.
All right. So tune in there. If you have any corrections or
Corrections.
notes or comments, put those in there.
Yep.
Subscribe, like, share, do all the things.
Yep.
And we'll be back next week
Yeah.
for This Week in History.
Bye, guys.
Say goodbye, Will.
Bye.